So as part of our work on the Roman Empire, early Roman Empire, Roman Republic, we look at the Roman Republican army at about the time of the wars with Hannibal, the Punic Wars, about 250, 200 BC. So we're going to learn about the Roman military of this period and understand its strengths and its weaknesses. Good at some things, bad at others. By doing that, developing tactical analysis skills. We're really thinking about the methods of fighting here, what's good and what's bad, tactics. Lots of key words, we'll explain them as we go through the lesson. Experience just means, are you experienced? Have you done it before? Quincunxes, we'll talk about in a minute. It's a formation in the Roman army. Inflexible. Thing can't be changed easily. It's inflexible. So, let's get started. Who commanded these Roman armies, called legions, as you probably know? Well, the consul, who was elected, 2 of them every year, would command the army. And an army was 2 legions, and each legion was ruled by a praetor, who was also elected. And he would appoint officers called tribunes, and they're all members of the Roman aristocracy. So it's unfair to think that this consul here was appointed to be a commander having never been in the army before. It's not true. He'd have been expected since he was a teenager to accompany his father on campaign. In the cavalry, then he'd have been a tribune, he'd have been a praetor perhaps, and then later on would be a consul. So Roman generals, although they are not full-time professionals, they do tend to have quite a lot of military experience. And in March of every year, the new consul would muster, that means gather together, his force that year. Of all the Roman citizens who were eligible, some were picked to be in the fight for that year. They were mustered. And at that point, they had to train. Now this picture here, the Roman is wearing the wrong equipment. This is much later, but the principle remains the same. He starts off, a lot of it early training is muscle stuff and basic drills. So this wooden sword and this wooden shield, you practice hitting this wooden post. The sword and the shield actually heavier than the shield and the sword he'd use in war. So a heavier shield, a heavier wooden sword to build up the muscle. He spent hours stabbing and hitting this post, being trained by one of the centurions. Now, a centurion is a bit like a sergeant, an experienced man who's given the job of training these recruits ready for battle. And they carry the stick because they're allowed to hit you if you get it wrong. So lots of training in drill, marching in formation, throwing the pilum, and sword play. And the picture of it here. Roman troops again, they've got the wicker shields, the wooden swords, again heavier. And here's a centurion with his stick, which is allowed to beat you with if you get it wrong. So in a few months of this training, you hope to be able to turn out a competent Roman legionary army. And they would fight in what's called the triplex asses, triple axis, 3 lines. A Roman army would line up like this. Here's the enemy. At the front is the velites, the skirmishers, the light troops. Explain that in a moment. And then you've got the 3 lines of Roman legionaries. Astarte, Princeps, Triarii. Youngest men, prime men, veterans. And you know these blocks here are smaller, there's less Triarii. In their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s, essentially. Yeah. And they'd fight in this sort of chessboard formation. They'd fight first. As they got tired, they'd withdraw, they'd come forward. If things got desperate, the Triarii would come forward. It was a very good formation for attacking head-on. These guys would fight, they would get tired, they would withdraw through these gaps, these guys would come forward. And if things got desperate, you'd use a Triarii. It became a phrase within classics and within Roman literature. The affair came down to the Triarii, means this battle was close, it was desperate, we had to use our last reserves. So who are these troops? There's the velites in front. Poorest guys in the army, can't afford much equipment, maybe you buy your own stuff. So you'd have maybe a helmet, often this sort of wolf pelt, shield, a few javelins, and your job is to keep the enemy busy while the rest of the army gets settled and sorted. You're the light troops, you're quick, you can move around the battlefield quickly, the lights. And then you've got first main line of troops, Hastati. You can see in both of these pictures. This guy here is Hastati. You've got the Montefortino helmet, a little bit of armour, big Scutum shield, the sword, when this sword came in, we're not arguing about that, and the Pilum throwing javelin. These are the younger men, less equipment, they're in their 20s. They go into battle first. Next, you've got the Princeps. This guy here's one. These guys here. Very similar to Hastati. Older men, more armour, Pilums, swords. These are your prime men. These are the best guys in your army. You've done it before. And finally, if things get desperately bad, you call up your Triari, the veterans. They're equipped in the same way, you can see here. They've got sword, they've got the armour, the helmet, the big shield, but no throwing spear, no javelins, no pilums. They have the old-fashioned phalanx spear. That's their big. That's a big difference for them. They don't chuck things. And for cavalry, called the equies, Roman cavalry. Now, Roman cavalry, they're the posh people because they can afford horses. So the sons of senators, the sons of noble families often form the cavalry. There's their sort of equipment here. You got a picture in your book of the sort of horn saddle because there's no stirrups. Now the thing to notice, the thing to make a note of, is that the Roman cavalry were famously rubbish in this period. Unreliable, no good, not shock troops, no good for reconnaissance, really, really, really poor. Mostly. So, strengths and weaknesses. Weaknesses first. Cavalry rubbish, as I said. And strengths and weaknesses is sort of overlapped. This Roman army, this Roman legionary army, this system, called the Manipula system, is tremendously powerful going forward. If the enemy faces them head on in a big stand-up fight, the Romans will almost always win. They have a system where they can feed in fresh troops to the front. So going forward, this formation has proved to be almost unbeatable. But the weakness, of course, is if you don't fight them the way they want you to fight them, they're in trouble. Especially, Hannibal knows the Romans are unbeatable going forward, so he's not going to fight them that way. He's going to find other ways to fight them.